Boot camp, that was something last year that I bet a lot of folks here right now just aren't really wanting to be here. You know, to be quite honest with you, that was me last year. I didn't want to be there at all. When boot camp started being, you know, promoted and advertised and everything in church, Zach at this point was the pastor, and he's like, all right, all y'all are going, and I was like, yep, I'll be there. Well, as the weeks go by, Cameron, have you paid your fee yet? No, but I'm going to. And it finally got to that point where it was like the last few days where, you know, I had to register. I haven't even registered yet. And probably the next day after registration where I didn't register, I got a call from Zach, and he said, hey man, your registration's been covered. When we got to boot camp, just an instant, I don't need to be here. I'm too good for this. You know, I knew 75% of the people, but just something didn't feel right. I just didn't feel like I needed to be there. Immediately, I was thinking about ways to leave. Like I was already thinking about ways to leave. I hadn't been there an hour yet. It wasn't until probably a day and a half into the boot camp, I see people worshiping. I see men out there, you know, with their hands up. As skeptic as I was, and keep in mind, I've had, you know, even before this boot camp, I've got some encounter stories leading up to it. And for whatever reason, all that just went away. And I was just mad because I couldn't hear God. There was a point in our boot camp where we were walking kind of alone and trying to hear God and hear a new name that he asked for us and all that good stuff. I just couldn't hear it. You know, I went to the prayer tent by myself. Pastor David was giving a session or a message, and I just sat in the back. I wasn't around anybody. But after that session, everyone was kind of released to go do what they wanted to do. And it was late at night, and I was hanging out on the overhang with some of my life group buddies. There's this big old overhang, and lo and behold, guess who starts walking in the back, and that's Coach Quinn. Comes to our little group, and again, we're probably like 11, 12 of us sitting in a group, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he goes, I'm gonna ask you 3 questions, and I want you to give me the first thing that comes to your head when you hear that question. I said, okay. I can't remember the first 2, but the third question was, who do you want to confront when you get home? The instant answer was my girls, my wife and my 2 daughters. He looked down, and I looked up at him. He's like, I don't ever want to hear you say that you don't hear from God again. It blew my mind because the entire time I've just been complaining about not hearing from God. Moving forward along that, the next morning, the very first session was from Tommy Hood, and I didn't even look at the book. Keep in mind, I had nothing to do with boot camp, but I finally opened the book, and the session title was How to Hear from God. That same evening, after Tommy had given his message that pretty much told me everything that I wanted to hear, exactly how to hear from God. You know, they tell you at boot camp, you know, be careful when you go home. You know, you don't want to just word vomit all onto your family because, you know, because of the experiences and the encounters you're going to have with God throughout this entire process. But I did. I went home and I confronted my girls. I told them 2 things when I sat down with them. I said, the first thing I want to tell you is that I'm sorry. And the second thing is I want to thank you for leading our family when I couldn't. That from here on out, I'm going to do it. And so I just asked them to get on board because we're going to go together. I think one of the biggest things that me and my wife, even after last year's boot camp, really this entire year, has been, how do we take advantage of that strength that we got from released in boot camp on being vulnerable? How do we take advantage of that? Throughout our entire marriage, our entire lives, to when we decided to pursue Christ, to when we really, really decided to surrender, we've been trying to find ways to use the scars that we've gotten through our marriage and through our lives to share with others. Because when people see that you have those same scars, they're gonna be more vulnerable, they're gonna be willing to be more vulnerable with you. It all started with surrendering to God and doing it as a community with others. And I think that has been probably the biggest takeaway that we both have gotten through these camps. I would encourage you to get uncomfortable. If I were to go back and tell myself a year ago what to do, it would be to go all in. And what I mean by that is, you know, turn off the phone, really listen to the message. Plain and simple, open your heart. Open your heart, because when you do that, then you'll be amazed how God shows up.